So welcome back to another Artist Spotlight. Today I am joined by Mike Tayo here at Adams United Methodist Church in front of one of the main instruments that you play. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so before this, you just heard him playing something. You mentioned that was going to be improvised. Was that improvised?
Yes, it was.
That's great. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
I want to just kind of start by going into it and talking about, where you grew up and how did you get into playing the keys, the organ, and everything like that?
Well, I was born in Watertown in 1959, December 23rd. So people say, wow, you're a Christmas baby. Well, no, my mom and dad separated that out. My birthday was my birthday and Christmas was Christmas, so that was a good deal. And I had started out in the Watertown school system, but they had other plans, and I was uh, enrolled some 9 months later in the South Jefferson Central School System, where I graduated in the top 25 percentile of my class, which I was just happy to graduate, but I did end up in the top 25. And I was, excuse me, I was one of the first blind persons, I think, to my knowledge, I'm not totally sure about that, but to complete a K through 12 education in public schools.
Really?
Because my parents were insistent that I deserved, well, when they were trying to get me enrolled in school, one of my mom's famous lines was that I deserved more at the tender age of 7 than to be a weekend visitor and an occasional house guest in my own home. Mm-hmm. that meant that they were trying to keep me out of the institutions, which I think in the long run, if I hadn't done that, I don't think I'd be sitting here now, and I certainly wouldn't have been exposed to the technology I was exposed to. Mm-hmm. So I grew up, graduated, attended SUNY Potsdam, the Crane School of Music, and earned a BA in music performance. I know some people kind of wanted me to teach, and I'm really not cut out for teaching. You know, if I was to teach, it would be more, advanced students. But nevertheless, teaching is just not my thing, and I was into performance. So I graduated from there, and my major of study was organ, and I need to go back a little bit, and I did study privately at Trinity Episcopal in Watertown with organist choirmaster then Stacy Simpson, who has passed and has been gone for quite some time now. And so I studied with him for 6 years, but I don't know, it was just a gift, call it an innate gift, God-given. Between that and my encouragement in school, I had very good music teachers in school. And then when I got to college, obviously I did musical groups there, and concentrated on my organ studies. I was an organ major. And then I was also have a little studio in my own house that I do things primarily for myself, but I will do some projects for other people if they want it.
And there was a time too when you said that, not that you've mentioned so far, but that you've mentioned to me, that you've worked for a couple companies selling some.
Yeah, from 1990-ish to 2000, I traveled as a concert artist, representing Techniques and Musical Instruments, which at that time was a division of Panasonic Company. And my primary mission there was to work the organ line as a performer, but also as a product specialist. That means I worked with the various dealer networks, their salespeople, and then we used to do a lot of things with the customers. And the whole premise of that was to get people exposed to the technology at the time, and then if there was an opportunity that somebody wanted to purchase something, it was kind of a deal sweetener for them. So it was a marketing strategy as well as a performing thing, and it gave me a chance to really show off my organ studies, because if I hadn't had that organ pedagogy, there's no way I would have pulled off any of this stuff. using the technology of the late 21st century to do some things that I don't think I would be able to pull off otherwise if I didn't have the training in pipe organ, classical pipe organ, and so forth.
The question that I should be asking is a little bit more into your background then on how you really started playing in the first place.
Well, as I said, I had found out via visitations with an uncle of mine. In fact, it's the last relative that's still with us on my mom's side of the family, and he had told me, and I really didn't know this. I didn't realize this because nobody really told me. And he said that there was music on that side of the family. My mom's maiden name was Story with an EY, and they didn't. They weren't famous or anything. They weren't concert artists or anything like that. They just played music for their enjoyment, for the most part. And so I could have gotten some of that drive from them. It's really hard to know. I just seem to have this natural tendency toward music. And as the story goes, when I was about 2 years old, I can recall my mom saying that I was playing things like Mary Had a Little Lamb on one of these toy pianos, what do they call them, Schroeder pianos, like in the Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah.
Things like that. And then I gradually, I went, because of course, me being the curious type that I am, one of the things I love to do with the piano is, because it was one of these little toy upright pianos, and I figured out that if you tilted it back, you could get the hammers to go all over the string, the wires, right? Mm-hmm. And they'd always say, "What are you doing? Put that back." It wasn't really doing any harm to the piano, except we're just flipping it over.
Right.
And then my next instrument after that was what they used to call chord organs. They were electric organs, and kind of like, I don't know if they were sort of toy / beginner things. They were a small keyboard, and then on usually the left-hand side you had buttons that were chords, sort of like what's on an accordion, but a little more scaled down than that, because it usually had major, minor chords, and some of the organs had sevenths, and you just played the chords and played like a melody or some harmony on the keyboard. And they were reed instruments. In other words, they had a little blower in them that you turned on, and it had reeds that generated the sounds. I'm not sure exactly how they went together. It wasn't really a pipe organ type sound, but it would they sounded sort of like kind of like a melodeon type thing.
Okay.
Sort of, or some of the sounds that you would find on an accordion, it kind of sounded like that. Mm-hmm. And then I had, that was like a table model, and then they bought me another one, which was another Christmas present, which was it was on legs, and it was on the floor, and it was basically the same organ, but just more keys on the keyboard, like another octave on the keyboard, and the chords that were on the side, it had the same amount of chords that you could use. But the thing is, I was starting to get bored with that. I was outgrowing that, and I was starting to use actually the keyboard and play my own harmonies that way. So things just progressed. I have no idea how I was able to discern and learn perfect pitch. Of course, people say, "Well, you must have perfect pitch." I said, "Well, I guess in today's standards, I don't, because everybody's using a stinking strobe, and so, you know, is it perfect? Probably not. It's probably close, you know. I know I did an experiment with a buddy of mine in college, and said, yeah, give me an A. So I hit him the A, and he goes, you got that right on. I said, well, that's kind of surprising, because I mean, humans don't, I mean, as much as you can try, you're not going to be as accurate as a, you know, a machine or oscilloscope.
Right.
It just doesn't work. You would be very, very close.
Yep.
But you're not going to, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to hit that A440 just like that.
Right.
You know. So then, of course, as I said before, I had very good teachers in school. They not only, you know, obviously taught the curriculum, but, you know, they encouraged me. You know, they encouraged me to pursue and to go on. At the encouragement of one of those teachers. My parents did take me to Syracuse University for an evaluation, and I also went to Crane for an evaluation. And you know, and they all said that, yeah, he's you know, basically affirming to my parents that yes, I have potential. And so therefore it was just natural order. I was in band, chorus, and you know, mixed chorus. We had an absolutely fantastic band director that came in at my junior year in high school. So you know, my last 2 years of high school musically were phenomenal because of this guy. You know, he was Eastman School, West Point grad. One hell of a good trumpet player, and just, he knew his stuff. And, you know, when I graduated, I knew I was going to miss him, because it was a great time working with him.
Yeah. You said he was there 2 years, is that what you said?
Well, it was 2 years. He was there 2 years. Well, I had 2 years left. He came in 78.
Okay.
I graduated in 79.
So he was there longer, but you were.
Oh yeah. I think he retired in 2002. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what he did.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he was there for a while, and you know, he was just outstanding, and I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time to work with this guy, or you know, this guy influenced me a lot. In fact, I was able to work with another gentleman down in, I think it was New Hartford, and I was able to attend and perform at a workshop that Phil Wood's quartet was doing. And that was just amazing. I mean, you know, how many people get a chance to do that, especially from around here?
Right.
And so, I mean, that was just a wonderful experience. And I then just pursued my college career and you know, did the typical things that one does in college to get ready for the real world, except for my performance degree is one of the things that my band director said is probably, you know, you know, when you get it, what are you going to do with it? And that type of thing. You know, the degree may not be worth the paper it's written on. I don't know, but I was at least able to pursue it and get it under my belt. You know, and I think, and I played in a couple of groups for quite a number of years before I went on the road in 1990.
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot of playing, but I did. In fact, I think this week I'll be starting my 40th year here as organist.
Really?
Yeah. When I got here, we had a pipe organ that was it had undergone a rehab, but I think it was a bad, it wasn't a really good rehab, unfortunately. And the organ was, half the time you didn't know what was working, what week. And so when we fast forward to about 2003, I think it was around Christmas time, that we got this instrument in here. And I've been having fun ever since.
So what was it?
Well, as the story goes, I mean, of course, what things change when you end up moving back to your parents' house, because you're an adult. You've basically been on the road for 4 years. You're an adult. You come back, and now all of a sudden you gotta backtrack and be a kid again, because that's the way your parents are gonna treat you. Mm-hmm. Whether they mean to or not it just seems to happen, right? Because you're back under their roof. Very, very difficult time in my life, and of course, Mom is like, you need to do something. It's like, yeah, well, I don't want to play in some just nobody going nowhere rock and roll band. Nobody going nowhere bands are bad. It's just I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be doing like playing just dance places and just for the sake of doing it because I could, because I'm just supplementing a day job or whatever. But anyway, to make the story interesting, so I put an ad in the paper, looking for, anybody looking for a keyboardist, call me. So I get a phone call and talking to this guy, and as it turns out, back when I was about 10 years old, I had a cousin on my mom's side of the family. He got married, and the reception was at the old Macy's restaurant, which is now the Adams Country Club. And the band that they had hired was called the Eddie Trio, and it consisted of a couple, husband and wife, and their son, who played the drums. It was called the Eddie Trio, and so when on a break, somebody had convinced him to let me go up there and sit at the instrument and play. She had her main thing was that they had this Hammond Elegante, which was a solid state. It wasn't like the B3 home, the tone generator type instruments, but it was a fairly large instrument for the time, and she had that, and so I was sitting there playing, and her husband told the son, get up there and play with him. So he did, and I'm sort of smiling, because, well, fast forward to about, I don't know, this guy hadn't even gone into the military. He'd gone into the military. And I'm like 22-ish, 23 or whatever. I'm trying to put numbers in, but I get to talking with this guy, and it turns out that he was the part of that band that was at that wedding reception when I was 10 years old. So he knew who I was, but he just didn't know me, the character, that I am. He just knew, and so that began about a 38-year friendship, dear friendship. Yeah. That unfortunately ended in his passing because he got very sick. Gotcha. And I miss him to this day because it's been, well, not quite 2 years, but so we played off and on for years, and we the last several years I ended up doing production for him from the studio. He and his wife had a show in Florida that they did. They played a lot of the senior parks down there, and he had. I was the nuts and bolts of the show. They had what they did was they created their backing tracks, and then he played drums and she played guitar on it. So so I was still very much part. It was just, we kind of joked at being Mike Tayo in a can. Or it was like, I was digitized.
Right.
which is what it was, because I had used my computer to build the stuff for him.
Yep.
And then we would send it, whether he was up at the like campground where they stayed at in the summertime, or whether he was in Florida, I could just transfer the data to him, and he would build it into his library that he was using.
Yeah. That's great. So you kind of got to go to Florida and play, but not really.
Not really. Well, I did play when I was on the road down there. I worked in Central Florida quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's like kind of going back down there without going there.
Without the benefit of being in warmer weather.
Exactly.
So now talking about here at Adams United Methodist, you've been here for about 40 years, you said?
I'm starting this week. I think it's going to be. I came in I think right just before Thanksgiving, 84.
Okay, so good timing.
I was with a team because they'd hired my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, at the time was choir director here.
Okay.
And so we worked as a team for a while, and then things changed, and but I'm still here.
Yeah. And how has that been, I guess, for the last 40 years at this church?
It has been, for the most part, a wonderful experience, especially when I think they recognized that when we needed a new instrument, and we were going to put in something completely different than what this is. We were going to put in an Allen organ, which is a digital pipe organ.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, our music ministry has been kind of a hybrid. It's been a little bit of when I say traditional, I mean traditional writing where you either have, say, an organ accompaniment or piano and choir, to things that are a little bit more contemporary for choir, and so we have the flexibility with this to be able to produce some of the sounds. Mm-hmm. The only weak part of this thing is the drums.
Yeah.
The drums are not that good, so I mean, if we really need a drummer, we would, I would insist on a live drummer, or I would want to build some stuff in my studio, because I have a virtual instrument. It's called Superior Drummer, mm-hmm. And it is based on it's all digital. There's several kits that you can get for it. Right now I have the kit that comes with it at this point. Didn't expand it, which is kind of like a general either jazz or it doesn't have all those banging, like metal type sounds.
Right.
But I don't generally do a lot of that stuff anyway, so.
Yeah.
That's for the younger generation.
Actually, I think my friend who did metal had the same thing when I was in college.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. But
I mean, I just don't do it. I mean, it's, they can do what they want.
Right.
As long as they let me do what I want.
Makes sense. Right. So what haven't we talked about that you definitely want to make sure that we mention?
I'm just trying to think. I know that there are a lot of people who even to this day, and this technology was basically developed in the 90s, and it was improved upon a little bit in the early 2000s. But there's a lot of people out there that they have no idea that even though the organ itself is practically dead unless you see it in the church, or you see it as one of the digital consoles that are being moved from place to place. Mm-hmm. People don't even know. I mean, if you mention the word organ, I mean, a lot of these folks don't even know what an organ is, much less have ever seen it, unless they're in church. And there's a lot of, and on top of that, there's a lot of people that don't even know this technology exists, where I can do a lot of different things, but within the organ format. Which is what you heard earlier with this the orchestrations.
Yeah, you're sounding like a full orchestra. And you got, I mean, even if you don't like the drum sound, you got the drums there. You have almost everything.
I have them. I mean, and the percussion that I'm using, that's pretty good. But the drum sounds, as like if you want to use rhythms and stuff, they are they didn't do a whole lot with those. Roland didn't until they got to the new models of this before they stopped making them all together, which I couldn't use them unless I had like a sighted assistant, because it's touchscreen.
Oh.
And and unfortunately, a lot of these instruments that I would really love to get into, I can't, because they're primarily inaccessible to a screen reader, even on a computer. And so I'm shut out of a lot of this stuff, unless I want to, if I want to pay somebody handsomely to stand over my shoulder day after day, because I never know what I'm gonna, if I'm working and I need to make an edit or I need to create something, and if I've got to wait for somebody, that productivity is unacceptable.
Yeah.
I have some fairly good instruments that are accessible now. But the thing is that they are, they're sort of like old news. If you've heard, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of these, games on computer, where you hear choirs actually singing. It's not, those choirs aren't singing. I mean, there's no choir. It's all done by virtual instruments. There's a choir package, and I forget what it's called. I'd love to get it. But again, it's something that I wouldn't be able to do, because one of the things you can do is use and I'm not sure what they're using now, but at the time, they were using a thing called Word Builder to actually, you could actually put text into a document that could be then processed with this computer and actually make it sing. And it's quite authentic.
Yeah. I mean, now with AI,
yes,
there's a lot of people able to take somebody else's voice, for instance, and put it out and make somebody else sing their song.
I mean, that is great. That is a great thing, except I don't agree with it, because of the fact that I think AI has its place. But I heard an interview, part of one, because it was like over 2 hours long, and I forget who it was. It was on one of Mike Rowe's podcasts, the way I heard it with Mike Rowe, and it was a guy that was interviewed, and he doesn't speak too highly of that kind of thing. And I mean, this guy's, he's certainly in the know, and the name escapes me at this point. And I would agree with him. I mean, if we could use this AI for, like, say, well, one of the problems is a lot of the companies are not really that interested in trying to make their products accessible, because they don't have to comply with because they're international, and and nobody's regulating the industry, okay, there needs to be a minimal requirement on this, or you cannot do business, say, in the United States. Now, I'm not saying they should be regulated to the point where it's like cost prohibitive. But it's like anything, any company that makes an electrical product, it has to meet certain requirements, or else it can't be sold in the States. It's got to have, like three conductor wire, for your ground plugs, like your appliances and all that stuff. It's just a minimal standard. And a lot of these companies they're not interested, because A, they don't have to. B, all of the above. They don't have to.
Right.
And so if this AI could be used as a tool to actually, okay, for example, if I had one of these like higher end instruments in the in my setup, and I could tell it, go to such and such an area, like for example, go to the mixer, go to the like the graphic equalizer, and turn up. And I would have to know my library, so I'd have to say turn up, say number 4, graphic on the, or however they would say, or turn up, so many hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have to tell it what level. If you could do it that way, I know it would be a little bit laborious for some people, but for somebody who can't see, it would be ideal.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
I mean, because I have an app on my phone right now, which happens to be an iPhone, and the reason why I can use an iPhone is because it has a thing built in. Apple builds a screen reader in called VoiceOver, and VoiceOver has all the ability to navigate a touchscreen. So I use a touchscreen. As long as I have navigability with it, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the screen reader, and all of them, if a user interface is way too graphical, it's really tough to teach a screen reader how to recognize it, much less help you navigate through it and control it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this AI, the potential for AI is incredible, and I have I have an app on here that has an AI tab that will describe photos for me, and it's pretty good. It's actually quite good.
Mm-hmm.
And if that sort of technology could be used to access literally the inaccessible, that would be a huge game changer.